What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day of Philly Sports History for April 4th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Thursday edition of the podcast. I think I almost saw the sun this morning, but more rain is on the forecast. But it does look like this bout is going to be more if you're down South Jersey, Maryland, Delaware. Looks like you're going to get it more than we are up here. So stay safe. I'm over the rain. It's supposed to be at least halfway decent this week. It's going to be chilly for WrestleMania, but at least it will not be raining. All right, let's start as we always do with a recap of yesterday's question of the day. I asked you, now that Joe's back, just how far will the Sixers go? 86% of you think they're at least going to win a series, which means they're going to get into the play-in and at least win the play-in, or maybe even get up to that 6th seed, which is still not out of the realm of possibility. More on that in a minute. But as always, thank you for participating in the question of the day. 267-495-8531. Get you in on the Back to the Future voice and text line. I'm a little bit higher than that. I think they make a deep run. But again, I know how this is going to end. I really do. And it's just, you ever do something that you know is terrible, you know is not going to end well, and you just don't care? Yep, that's me with the Sixers right now. So you're going to come on board with me and ride this heartbreak train, because it's a heartbreak train and I know it's going to go off the rails. It's just a matter of how and when, not if, but I don't care. But let's stick with the Sixers for right now then. Let's kind of go a little bit out of order. They have a huge game tonight against the Heat down in Miami. Looking forward to that. No word yet on whether Maxi's going to play, at least that I have heard. This is huge for this tiebreaker as well as the standings, because currently the Heat lead the season series 2-1. So if the Sixers can win this, they still have a chance to beat the Heat in the tiebreakers. But this is like crunch time Jimmy Butler, so this should be a very, very good game. Looking forward to this, and I'm glad that Joe had the first game out of the way going into this. But currently, they're a game and a half behind the Heat. And thanks to our friends up in Brooklyn, our old pal Ben, who didn't play, but his team, the Nets, beat the Pacers last night. So now they're only a game and a half behind the Pacers for that 6th seed as well. It's going to be a great, like a 6-game sprint at this point between those three teams, the Heat, the Pacers, and the Sixers, to see who gets that 6th seed. So I'm looking forward to it. So thank you, Brooklyn Nets, for giving us hope. 6 games left. And the Sixers, of all of the teams, I think have the most favorable schedule. They play Orlando and Miami. But I think it's Detroit, Memphis, San Antonio, and I forget the 4th team they play. So they certainly could make some noise, especially, Joe's only going to get better from where he was the other night. I just want to make sure Maxey, and I want to see that, we got to see, going into the playoffs, how the rotations and everything with Buddy Hield and, why can't I think of the name? The guy from Villanova. Oh my goodness, I cannot think of it, but how they're all going to fit together and play off of each other. So looking forward to tonight's game. I have not been this hyped up for a Sixers game in quite some time, at least since January. So looking forward to it. But again, I know how this is going to go. I know it's going to end badly. It's going to go off the rails, but we are full speed ahead on the Heartbreak Express. Who's coming with me? Let me know. Be sure, let me know either through the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Hit me up on social media, Twitter, TikTok, Jimbo_Mont, Instagram @PhillyJimbo. If you're on Facebook, look me up there. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Even if you're listening to the podcast, let's start growing these things. It's all about the algorithm, I'm finding. And now that the views and all of the stuff behind the scenes, I'm starting to get into more rotations and things like that, I need those subscriptions. So go subscribe to the YouTube channel. You guys have done a great job so far, but let's grow this thing, because I have some big ideas. It's just finding the time now and continue to grow. So tell a friend, have them tell a friend, and you just know how it goes from there. As a reminder, the Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame induction class was announced. I had put the link in my bio or the description. that gives you the opportunity to go to see who's inducted. Eventually, the write-ups and everything will be up there, but there's ticket information. The ceremony is November 7th. Again, information on the inductees are coming, but this is a star-studded class, just with Chase, Ryan, and Jameer Nelson, Paul Westhead, Lorelai. Like, there's just... it's very, like... you could say it's top-heavy because of Jameer, Chase, and Ryan, but, like, there's not a... Like, this is... Like, when we were going through the ballot, I'm just like, geez. And even the people that we were leaving off. So go check that out. The Philadelphia Sports Hall of Fame link is in the description. All right, Phillies. I mean, 4-1 loss after a 7-hour rain delay. I don't know how invested they were in this game, to be completely honest. I know they made a lot of errors. And basically they kept saying that the reason they pushed it was a 7-hour rain delay, and the reason they kept pushing the game back and tried to get it in is because both teams wanted their day off today. So if that was part of the reason, I question, and I hate to say that too early in the season. I'm not saying they're playing with no heart or anything like that, but it's kind of like, man, how invested were you if you're concerned with your day off and then you sat around the clubhouse all day waiting for the game? But again, another slow start at home, 2-4 on this opening homestand. Some positives, I guess, is the starting pitching, again, was pretty good, minus Nola. Schwarber seems like he's hitting for average, and he does look like he's slimmed down a lot and has been, like, better on the base paths. And it could be because I heard that last year there was a possibility of a knee injury. Bryce kind of broke out of his slump. So maybe going on the road this weekend, they go to D.C. and then St. Louis. So maybe getting away from home and getting out of the pressure, maybe because it was very hyped up, this opening series, will help them. But 4-1 loss to the Reds. Again, maybe going on the road will do wonders for the psyche of this team. There was some extra padding to the camera well where Bryce fell the other day. Apparently, from what I read, they're expected to make a more permanent fix before they return back home for the Pirates late next week. So no surprise or no shockers there. But, I mean, if you're going to play like that, I guess they got to make sure. Because that's just, you got to things like that. Is maybe you could have just let it go out of play. But had he dogged it, I know there's people out there that used to get on Bobby Abreu about his loafing around in the field. You can't have it both ways. I mean, people used to complain about Iverson getting banged up, but he would always take it down to the whole. You got to like players like Bryce Harper that are just going to put it out there and go 100%. I mean, God, you can look at Joe. I mean, Joe gets hurt because he's diving on the floor and things like that. But if he didn't, we'd probably rip him. So I'm like, put the padding down, let Bryce be Bryce, and let's be happy. But they do have the day off in Washington now for tomorrow for a weekend series. Flyers news, they, excuse me, are still off until Friday, but the Caps play tonight against the Penguins. The Islanders are in Columbus tonight. They're 1 game up on the Caps, 2 on the Islanders with 6 games left. Detroit's in the mix as well, but they don't play until Friday either. Again, it's going to be fun for the Sixers and Flyers going down the stretch, seeing we know the Sixers are in. The Flyers are still trying to clinch a spot, but either way, it's a 6-game sprint for both of them, and this is what you got to like. I mean, it's one thing to get to be one of the top seeds, but I mean, for teams like this, for the Flyers, a young team that weren't expected to be here, being like in a race for a playoff spot is pretty fun. And for the Sixers, considering what they went through with Joe and having a shot to get out of that play-in now is huge. And I'm telling you, I know it's going to end badly. I know it, but I think they can make some noise once the actual playoffs start. Sticking with the Flyers, though, the John Tortorella press conference really got a lot of play yesterday. And just kind of a couple of things that stuck out to me. One is you got to love a guy like that that's going to come out and say, look, this is where I'm coming from. You don't have to like it, but this is where I'm going. And he says, like, I'm going to push athletes. And if they're going to quit because I'm pushing them, then you got the wrong coach here, or you got the wrong people in the building. And I like it. He's like, I'm not changing. And he's been a successful coach wherever he's gone. And you got to love it. Like, I like that. Like, this is who I am. And if you're not going to like it, it's kind of like an old school thing. And I mean, there's a lot of people out there around my age, like late Gen X, even some of the early millennials, I guess, to a certain point, where we're like, no, man, like, this is what it is. Like, you don't get a participation trophy if you're not doing well. You get called out for it. That's just the way I was raised. If you're not doing your job, or you're doing something wrong and you're consistently doing it, yeah, you're going to get yelled at. And I mean, I don't know. And I think and again, this is probably going to rub some people the wrong way, but that's okay. I think that there's a lot of softness that is running rampant just in the world in general. And it's like, people need to toughen up. And I think that's what John Tortorella said there. I'm going to push athletes, and if they're going to quit, then you got either the wrong players playing for me, or you got the wrong coach for what you want to do. And I, for one, I mean, I like it. And it's a very old school thing. And yes, I know it's a fine line. Times are different and everything, but we can't be soft. And if the coach is going to yell at you and call you out when you're not doing your job, do your job. It goes back to like, oh, well, we're mad. Like, why are you doing touchdown dances and scoring touchdowns when you're up 28 points? Guess what? Stop them. I mean, you don't want a guy to do a bat flip? Don't throw a pitch that he hits a home run off of. You don't want the team running up the score when you're down 4 touchdowns? Stop them. Don't get down 4 touchdowns. I mean, I don't know. To me, it's simple, and I have a very old school mentality when it comes to that. So I, for one, John Tortorella, I like it. Push those athletes, and they're going to quit. Screw them. Get them out of here. The other thing I liked that he said was, the narrative is, oh, we're young, we're not supposed to be here, so it's okay. And it ties right back into that, like justifying it, that it's okay for them to be playing poorly and making mistakes because they don't know what's going on. They're young. And he said, that's bullshit. He's like, we're here. Face it. Let's be better. And I love that. Like, and it's kind of one of those things we talked about at one point when we first started this podcast, the new Philly versus old Philly, kind of like that old Philly mentality, like, well, we're going to lose, but we weren't expected to be there, so it was a good season. No, expectations change. So the expectations for this team at the beginning of the season 100% are different than what they are now. And I agree with him. Who cares? We're young. We haven't been here. And like, we need to play better because the expectation now is that the Flyers should make the playoffs. If they don't, this season was a disappointment. We're not taking moral victories. Yes, there's learning experiences along the way that they're going to take with them, and they're going to be better for this. But no, we're not taking away moral victories from this. And the key piece I think I liked here, he took accountability for it. And you don't see this a lot. He said, we're not ready. I haven't done a good enough job getting them ready. He said, yes, they need to be able to be professionals and be ready and know how to do things, but it's on me. And a lot of times, like, we used to always get on Andy Reid about saying, I need to do a better job putting them in blah, 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 blah. But, like, he's saying, I need to do a better job as well. So it's not like he's just calling out the players saying, you suck, you're an embarrassment. He's putting it on himself, too. I'm not doing my job getting you ready. So I like it. And I've been following the Tortorella thing and, like, the way he pushes buttons and things like that. I love this. And I like the fact that he says, I'm going to push them. If they quit, you got the wrong people in the building. I like the fact that he was like, I don't like the bullshit narrative that, hey, we're young, we're not supposed to be here. He's like, no, we're here. Let's be better. And I'm taking responsibility to help them get better as well. I love it. Let me know what you think. And you know, it's for the Flyers, it's kind of, Flyers fans are different than the other 4. So you can be 4 for 4, but like if you're an Eagles, Sixers, Phillies fan first, you probably give me some Flyers perspective on this, because like I said, the hardcore hockey fans who are hockey first, let me know what you're thinking, because I like this. And this is what they need, especially on a young team where he's trying to get them ready, but they need a coach like this. But for hardcore Flyers fans, let me know, because I know it's a little bit different perspective sometimes when you're hockey first. But I'm after seeing that, if this team doesn't come out and like punch somebody in the mouth on Friday night, maybe he's right. Maybe they got the wrong people in the building, because and he didn't scream, he didn't yell, just what he was saying. Like, I wanted to go run through a wall. So if they don't come out and punch somebody in the mouth on Friday night, I think maybe Danny Briere needs to check to see if he has the wrong people in the building. But let me know what you think about John Tortorella's press conference. We spent a lot of time on the Flyers today, but that's okay, because I'm ready to run through a wall. Eagles news, sign Smitty. I'm going to say it every day until Howie does it. Extend Smitty. Come on, dude. What are you waiting for? Like, we're getting closer now to the draft. Get it done and over with so you don't have to worry about it, and you can focus on getting the right picks and the right guys to help this defense out. Come on, Howie. Sign Smitty. Philly Goat. I showed you the shoes earlier this week, and if you haven't seen them, go back to Monday's episode. And I think it was Monday or Tuesday. Actually, I think it was Tuesday, because it was the Tuesday motivation and positivity and the shoes, and it just was a lot. So go, or not a lot, but we had a lot going on. But the shoes, go check it out if you haven't. These shoes are phenomenal. They have you can get them to match anything you have, whether it's Philly Goat or just what you have in your closet. So go check them out. These canvas loafers are hot. Check them out. Pick up a couple shirts to go along with them. They do come from a different spot, but the shipping was still, I think it was less than 2 weeks I had them. 2-3 weeks. So it wasn't a long wait at all. They get custom made by somebody. So go check them out. You will not be disappointed. Go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery. Check out the canvas loafers. I'm telling you, they're good quality and they're comfortable. I think that's the key, especially for summertime shoes. They're comfortable, and if you're like me, you don't like to wear shoes without socks, go to Amazon. They have specifically for canvas loafer socks where there's still no show, but you don't have to worry about your feet sweating and smelling them up. So go to phillygoat.com. Use the promo code Jim Montgomery for 10% off of your orders. All right. So the Eagles, going back to them for a minute, they just made a trade with the Steelers for Kenny Pickett. Not the first time the Eagles and Steelers made a trade. I don't even know if this is the first time, but today we're going to go back to 1941. And probably not the first time they made a trade, but this is probably the most interesting trade in Steelers and Eagles history. On this day, 1941, they traded cities. Yes, they traded cities. So the backstory is Lex Thompson, the heir to the Republic Iron and Steel fortune, wanted to buy a professional football team. He worked out in New York, so whoever he bought, he wanted to move to Boston. So he approached Burt Bell to buy the Eagles. Burt Bell said no. So he's like, okay. And he knew also that Art Rooney was in some financial trouble. So he went to Art Rooney, overpaid, but bought the Steelers for $160,000. And this is in 1941. So think about that. He overpaid, and buying an NFL franchise back then was only $160,000. Lex wanted to move them to Boston, again, to be closer to work. It was like a 5-hour train ride, or whatever the train ride is from New York to Boston. But he was like, okay, I'm moving the Steelers to Boston. Rooney then went, he started to have a little bit of regret for this, still wanted to be involved in the NFL, went to his old buddy Burt Bell, who was the owner of the Eagles, and bought shares of the Eagles from Burt Bell. You follow me so far? Because then this is where it starts getting a little confusing. Their plan was to make it the Pennsylvania Eagles. So they would split their games between Pittsburgh and Philly and basically have the entire state of Pennsylvania be Eagles fans. The NFL owners were like, no way. Because they're like, they didn't like the home state advantage. They were just like, this is ridiculous. Like, you need to be in one city. And I think at the time, most of the teams were in either the Midwest or the Northeast. So they're like, no, we need to have specific cities. Around this same time, Rooney was starting to have second thoughts too. He was like, man, I just sold my hometown team and everything. So there was a solution. And also the owners didn't want Thompson. That was the other thing. the owners didn't want Thompson to move the Eagles to Boston. They wanted two teams in Pennsylvania. They knew that Boston at the time was not. There had been a couple teams in Boston that just didn't work out. So they were like, no. And the owners just were not happy about the whole situation. So they came up with a solution. Bell and Rooney went to Thompson and said, how about we trade cities? So basically, the Philadelphia Eagles became the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Pittsburgh Steelers became the Philadelphia Eagles. As a part of the deal, there was a series of trades. It was known as the Pennsylvania Polka, where 11 players from the Steelers in 1940 were traded to the Eagles, who still played in Pittsburgh. You follow me on that one? And then 17 players from the Eagles were traded to the Steelers, but still played in Philly. Got me now? So, like, the players stayed in the cities, the team names swapped. And I know it's confusing. So, who got the best of this? Well, the 1940 Eagles were 1-10, and the 1940 Steelers were 2-7-2. So, it's basically like, who cares? I mean, both teams sucked. They were two of the worst teams in the league. Now, some people were concerned about this. The NFL considers a team's history by the city it occupies. So we're not Steelers fans, I think. So ultimately what happened was the franchises, basically, Thompson bought the Steelers, but theoretically it was the Eagles. So he got the Philadelphia franchise. And then they traded some players to make it kind of the same players didn't have to move and things like that. But ultimately, as far as the NFL is concerned, we are Eagles fans. We are not Steelers fans, thankfully. But you following that? So the Eagles and Steelers traded cities today in 1941. So the Eagles didn't move to Boston, and the Steelers were not, or no, I guess the Steelers would have moved to Boston. See, this is where it gets confusing. Like, it's so crazy. The Steelers would have moved to Boston, and then the Eagles would have played in Pennsylvania. So instead, the Eagles stayed in Philly, the Steelers stayed in Pittsburgh. Rooney and Bell then owned the Steelers. Lex Thompson owned the Eagles. They traded some players to make it work. We are Eagles fans, according to NFL, I think. Sadly, Thompson, though, was in the hospital with appendicitis in 1948 when the Eagles won the NFL championship, the first one of the two teams to win an NFL championship, and then sold it in 1949 before the season started when the Eagles went back-to-back. If you're keeping score at home, and now that the Eagles have a Super Bowl, I am going to count this, and I don't care what anybody says. The Eagles are 4-time champions. The Steelers are 6-time champions, so not too shabby for the state of Pennsylvania. But on this day in 1941, the Steelers and the Eagles traded cities to keep the Steelers from moving to Boston and the Eagles from taking over all of Pennsylvania. Got that? Because there will be a quiz at the end. Gotta love the early days of the NFL. All right, today's Citizens Bank Park Top 20 memory for the 20th anniversary is, we're going to go back to September 30th, 2007. And on that day, I should say, the Phillies beat the Nationals 6-1 in the season finale, and that clinched the National League East for the Phillies for the first time since 1993. They went to the postseason. Jimmy Rollins went 2 for 3 with a double and a triple. Ryan Howard went 3 for 4 with a home run. Brett Myers struck out Willie Mo Pena to clinch it. And they already knew the Mets had lost to the Marlins 8-1 earlier in the day, and that culminated a fun summer. The Phillies were just not quite good enough most of the season. They spent most of it right there, 3 to 8 games back. I believe that. No, that was the year before. Never mind. But they spent most of the season 3 to 8 games back of first place and second and third place. They they were 7 games back with 17 games to play, and then went 13-4 to chase down the Mets, who choked. You gotta love it when the Mets choke, which seems to be the MO of their team in recent years, pretty much ever since 1986. But it was the first of 5 straight division titles for the Phillies. Unfortunately, they were swept in the NLDS by the Rockies, but Citizens Bank Park, as Todd Zalecki said yesterday, on the opening day of it, but it was yesterday we talked about it, Citizens Bank Park had his first taste of October baseball, and what was the comment? Oh man, so many October memories. But our Citizens Bank Park top 20 memory of the day was when the Phillies clinched the NL East in 2007, culminating that rundown of the Mets, who choked, going 13-4 down the stretch, clinching it on the last day. And it really was a sign of things to come in the future. And then finally today, our Philly sports team with unfinished business that left a little bit of meat on the bone. This one's still painful. It's still not fully healed for me. And that's the 2020-2021 Sixers. Excuse me. That was Doc Rivers' first year. During that season, they made trades for Seth Curry and Danny Green, who both played well down the stretch. This season was shortened at 72 games due to COVID. Joel and Ben were all-stars, but could not play due to COVID contact tracing rules. The Sixers would go 49-23 that season, win the Atlantic, and have the number 1 overall seed in the East. Expectations were high. The excitement was big. That heartbreak train was barreling down the tracks. They beat the Wizards 4-1 in the first round of the playoffs. Joe partially tore his meniscus in Game 4 of that series, sat out Game 5, but they won anyway. Unexpectedly, just like yesterday, he came back and was ready for Game 1 against the Atlanta Hawks. Things were looking good. They were up. The series was tied 2-2. The Sixers were up 26 points in Game 5 late at home and blew it. They won Game 6, and then, we all know what happened in Game 7. It was a Ben Simmons, I'm going to hide game. It was the end of the Ben Simmons era in Philly, and I think really this one, more so than the Toronto series, set the tone for Doc and Joel so far, their playoff narrative. So hopefully Joel can do something to change that narrative this year, but man, this one still stings because the dude hid. You hid. You absolutely hid. You passed up a layup. You hid. And I don't want to get into it. I get still frustrated because this one, I completely went off the rails with this one. But today's Philly sports team with unfinished business, the 2020-2021 Sixers. Again, it's still a fresh wound to me. That's the stinking Ben Simmons. I hate him. Which leads us to today's question of the day. Who is the biggest villain in Philly sports that actually played for our teams? We had this a couple weeks ago where we took a non-Philly player who's the biggest villain. Who is the biggest villain that played for us? Is it Ben Simmons? Is it Carson Wentz? I know a lot of people still have hard, strong feelings. Is it Scott Rowland, who I still hate, but whatever? Or is it Al Horford, who came in as a spy for 1 year to spy on the Sixers and went back to the Celtics and then made the front office give them Jason Tatum, basically? Let me know what you think. Who is the biggest villain who played here in Philadelphia? Is it Ben Simmons, Carson Wentz, Scott Rowland, or Al Horford? Someone else, let me know. 267-495-8531. You know where I'm going with this one. Screw that dude. You want to talk about a punchable face? I think I'd rather punch Ben Simmons in the face than Spencer Strider. That's just how angry I am. But let me know your thoughts. Call in the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. Who's the biggest villain that played in Philly that went to another team? All in honor of today's Philly sports team with unfinished business. That team left a lot of meat on the bone. You're the number 1 seed, and you can't get past the Atlanta Hawks. The 2020-2021 Sixers, the stinking Ben Simmons. This is why I know how this Sixers, the heartbreak train is they're gonna break my heart. It's just a matter of how. But again, I don't care. I'm along for the ride. I'm telling you, the Sixers have always been this way for me. I know how it's gonna end. Ends this way every time, and I still fall for it. On this day, back in 1941, the Eagles and the Steelers traded cities. Yes, that's right. They traded cities to keep the Eagles from taking over Pennsylvania and the Steelers from moving to Boston. Today's Citizens Bank top 20 memory in honor of the 20th anniversary is when the the Phillies clinched the NL East in 2007. Let me know what you think about John Tortorella as well. Sign Smitty. Go to Philly Goat. Buy the shoes. Hit me up on social media. Let me know who the biggest villain in Philly sports history is. Stay dry. Dry weather is on the way. I promise. Big Sixers game tonight. Again, I know how it's going to end, but I'm all aboard. Let's go. Full steam ahead. I feel like it's the Coors Light train. Like, that's what I'm on. I'm going to crash through somebody's house, but there's not going to be LL Cool J there saying, oh, I forgot to play the song. Go have yourselves a Thursday. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History. I'm Jim Montgomery, and until next time, I'll see you when I see you.